Get 6 months of local news for just $2. You get unlimited access to the news and information you need to stay connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to get 6 months of local news for just $2.
You're listening to Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. I'm your host, Rob Port. If I sound distracted, it's because I've been busy covering this story all morning. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad Oban.
He's right of center, I'm left of center, both sides of the political spectrum.
I think it's cathartic. I think it's a necessary and proper debate. I'm glad we're having it.
And honestly, we have to do better.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting blamed for this, right? Welcome to Plain Talk, where the federal government may be shut down, but we're still showing up for work here at Plain Talk. I was off last week. First of all, thank you, Chad, for sitting in. 2 great shows. I listened to them. Super interesting. You guys did a great job, had great conversations. You and the governor managed to avoid dunking on me.
Yeah, we talked about it afterwards. We were at an event together on Friday, and we both agreed that we missed a real opportunity to say you're wrong on cell phone bans. But hey, before we leave it though, how was the wedding?
Wedding was great. Everyone came out of it married, and it did really good. Anyway, we have a guest, special guest on the show, Mr. Steve Forbes, editor-in-chief of Forbes Magazine, 2-time presidential candidate, podcast host of What's Ahead with Steve Forbes, joining us on the show today. Now, the reason he's on, he's going to be delivering a speech, part of the Menard Family Distinguished Speaker Series for the Challey Institute at North Dakota State University. The title of his presentation is Prosperity Through Economic Freedom. And by the way, if you want to get more information about that, if you go to ndsu.edu/Challey Institute, that's Challey Institute, you can find all the information about the events and the other great work that they're doing there. Mr. Forbes, welcome to Plain Talk. Thank you for being on.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit today about your, because first of all, I'm a lifelong Republican and a conservative, and I have spent my life believing in the things that people like you, other thought leaders like Milt Friedman think about economic policy. You have been an inspiration and a guiding light through a lot of this. But I look at the Republican Party in America right now, and I wonder if they still believe some of these things, particularly when it comes to policy areas like tariffs. Speak a little bit about where the Republican Party is right now when it comes to economic freedom.
Well, I think right now we've got some things that have been going well. Getting that tax cuts saved, that big, beautiful bill, which also includes some tax cuts, is going to be very, very good for the economy. The deregulation part, which is essential, it's one of those unglamorous things, but has been crushing the American economy for decades. They're making immensely good progress there at the EPA, at the Energy Department, the Interior Department, and trying to reduce the rules that are crushing business. But you hit on something very important with tariffs, and that is that tariff is another word for tax. And when you impose a tax, you are imposing a barrier of sorts between buyer, seller, producer, and consumer. And so we have trade problems, but I think you should deal with the trade problems that we've had in a laser-like fashion, instead of these uncertain on-again, off-again sweeping tariffs, and which are sort of slowing the economy. And yes, they're bringing in revenue, but they're slowing the economy. And so I hope we get clarity on that. I think the Supreme Court is going to throw out a lot of those tariffs because their taxes have to go through Congress, and most of those haven't gone through that kind of process. And so that's not. I hope they clear that up, because that's a big weight. Another big weight, while we're talking on it, is the state of the dollar. The dollar is weak right now. Both the administration and the Federal Reserve think a weak dollar is good because they think that improves the trade balance. The George W. Bush administration thought that in the early part of this century, and we saw where that led in the crisis of 2008, 2009. Great countries don't trash their money. And the other thing, finally, while we're on this subject, you got me going, is we don't need price controls on medicines. There are various ways to deal with the healthcare crisis, but government control shouldn't be one of them. We see where that has led to Europe.
So thanks for being on, Mr. Forbes. Unlike Rob, I'm actually left of center, so maybe you have some different perspectives on the role of government. But you mentioned healthcare, and I want to talk a little bit about that. We had the North Dakota Insurance Commissioner on probably a month ago or so talking about the huge increases that we're going to be seeing in premium costs, partly because of just the market, but partly because of the big, beautiful bill and some of the changes there. And he really laid the problem on the feet of healthcare providers who have no transparency. I mean, Rob did a story about the fact that you go to a hospital in Minot, they charge one thing, and then you go to another hospital, they charge you twice as much, and you have no way of knowing that before you go to the hospital. The free market isn't working if I can't figure out how much I'm getting charged for a heart surgery, because I just need a heart surgery, and the hospital is going to charge me whatever they want. But what that's leading to is health insurance premiums for business owners and employees to be skyrocketing, so they have less money to spend on things like entrepreneurship. Can you talk about, to me, it seems like forcing transparency from hospitals is a good regulation for consumers.
Well, you hit on something very important in healthcare, and that is there are no real free markets in healthcare. We have a strange system. Nobody designed it, but it is all based on third parties. That is insurance companies, and then the big ones, Medicare and Medicaid. And so the patient is not in charge of the healthcare market. So it would be like going to a restaurant where the patron, the customer, is not in charge. You're going to get a mess. And so we have a system that has probably cost twice as much as it should. And the way around it is to get control of those healthcare dollars to the patient. So you make the decision, not the other way around. And the proof of it is the lousiest, hospitals know they get their revenue not by pleasing you, but by how well they negotiate with insurance companies and with the government at various levels. And the proof of it is the lousiest motel in America wouldn't dare put you in a room with another guest with a curtain in between and the other guest being sick, which is what you have in most hospitals, which is ridiculous. So the way you get around that is various things. One is health savings accounts, which are good, but they have a lot of restrictions on them. And companies, as we've tried to do at Forbes, companies should be putting more of the money in the hands of you, the consumer. So you choose what insurance company you want, not what the employer wants. The hospitals and the providers give you the prices up front. And I'll give you one example. There's a hospital in Oklahoma called the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. Very successful, been around for 20 years. Board-certified surgeons. But the amazing thing is, and it sounds counterintuitive, but the amazing thing is they don't take insurance. You pay cash up front. They post all their prices online. You want to do something with your shoulder, you go online and they lay it all out. And if the procedure happens to cost more than what they priced, they eat the extra cost. And because they're a lean operation, their prices are 1/3 of what other hospitals charge for similar procedures, and their outcomes are as good or better than other hospitals. So when patients control the money and you have pricing transparency, you start to get a real free market, which means you get what free markets are supposed to be, productivity and more and better, and ultimately at less price. But don't say we don't have free markets in healthcare now. Definitely not. You, the patient, are not in charge.
As you can imagine, North Dakota, very agriculture-driven place. Historically, it's energy and agriculture. It's what we do here. Our farmers are pretty worried. Our agriculture commissioner, Doug Goring, was speaking before in an interim legislative committee recently, and he was saying that we're below break-even prices for things like soybeans, things like corn. And he is saying that the problem is, obviously part of the problem is trade. These tariffs are creating some problems, and people who used to, on the international markets, who used to buy our crops are maybe finding other sources for our crops. He's part of the problem, but he said really the larger part is costs for farmers are going through the roof. Inflation is killing them. He says that, it's not so much where the crop prices are, because we've survived at those crop prices before. It's where the break-even points are, because the costs to the farmers is going even higher. And this is what he said. He said tariffs add more costs, which continue to inflate the price of goods and services. And he said even a situation, I know President Trump is trying to pressure the Federal Reserve into lowering interest rates. And our ag commissioner says if you drop interest rates, you actually boost inflation. And he said, I'll tell you another issue, interest rates. And I've had producers say we need lower interest rates. And I'll tell you, you could give them money free and they still wouldn't make it. So how much of this situation that our farmers are facing is driven by, obviously our ag commissioner is saying this is a problem with tariffs and inflation. Do you agree?
Tariffs are a tax, and a tax means that tax is a cost. So yes, tariffs are disruptive to supply chains, and they talk about are tariffs good or bad? Tariffs are taxes, and you can have taxes that minimize harm, and you can have taxes that do immense harm. And so tariffs are doing real harm to the economy, I think. And I'm not buying the happy talk from Washington on that. And the uncertainty of the tariffs hurt, but also the Federal Reserve. It's not just the level of interest rates; it's the weakening of the dollar. When the dollar becomes weak, things become more expensive, and unfortunately, both the Federal Reserve and our Treasury Department are making the same mistake we made 20 years ago under a Republican, George W. Bush. The belief that if you gradually weaken the dollar, you'll improve our trade balance, and that'll be good. But whenever you lower the value of the dollar, you get repercussions in the rest of the economy, and you've outlined one area where you're getting bad repercussions. And so stable, strong dollar, great countries don't have weak currencies. And so I wish the White House would make it clear we don't want a weak dollar. We want a strong and stable dollar. And when you do that, interest rates come down. You don't get monetary inflation. But you'd think after 4,000 years of experience with inflation, not to mention our experiences in recent years, our authorities would have learned something, but they haven't. That's one reason why I co-authored a book called Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. And some lessons have to be relearned. So, yes, we've got some problems. The nice thing is these problems can be cured. We've done it before, and I hope we do it soon again. But on the tariff front, I think the Supreme Court hopefully will be helpful in knocking out about 70% of them that have not gone through Congress or gone through a proper regulatory process. And I hope people hammer home. Taxes are a price, and we have trade issues, but we've been reducing trade barriers one sort of or another since World War II. And that's what should be focused on, laser-like specific barriers, and deal with them that way instead of these sweeping tax increases. Republicans should not be in favor of tax increases.
It seems like neither party really much cares about the national debt. it doesn't matter who's in charge. It continues to go up. We saw it with the big, beautiful bill. We saw it during the Biden administration. Also, I don't think the public cares about the national debt. How concerned should they be about the national debt and deficit?
Well, the national debt is a result of bad dollar policy, bad spending policy, bad tax policy. So it's a result of bad policy. And the way you deal with it is you don't raise taxes and things like that. You get the economy growing. After World War II, for example, our national debt, proportionate to the size of the economy, was higher then than it is today. But but what we did was we had sensible spending policies. In the 60s, we reduced taxes, and by the end of the 1960s, not to bore you with numbers, but the national debt had gone from 121% of GDP down to about 35%. And that's how you deal with it. Unfortunately, starting in the 70s, we took the dollar off the gold standard, so it's fallen about 90% in value since then. And we haven't, recent times, we've not done right by the dollar, we've not done right by regulations, and we've not done right by taxes. And hopefully we can tackle those things. Because, talking about health care, if you get the government running health care, just look at our friends in Canada. You wait 9 months for acute surgery for a knee or a hip. You wait months to see a doctor. That's not what we want here.
I wanted to ask, talking about the national debt, you've said a couple times, we can't raise taxes. And trust me, I don't want taxes to go up. But one thing that bothers me is we seem to be giving Americans, like, if I want to eat steak for dinner every night, that's fine. I can make that choice, but I'm going to pay for it at the grocery store, right? So I don't eat steak for dinner every night. Sometimes I have salad. Sometimes I have chicken because it's cheaper. I can't afford to eat steak every night. And I feel like the problem we have right now is that the American people want to eat steak every night, and then they want to be on a chicken budget. And I feel like Washington's delivering that, and we're financing it with massive budget deficits. In fact, for all the talk with Doge and everything else, it looks like the first year of the Trump administration, we're on course for another budget deficit that's going to measure in the ballpark of about $2 trillion, which is just an astounding amount of money. And so I guess, is there a point, Steve, at which the message has to be to Americans, listen, if you want all this government, you have to pay for it. I mean, I believe in the marketplace. You believe in the marketplace. You've been advocating for this your whole life. Is there a point at which we just have to tell the American people, we have to price government appropriately? If you want this level of government, you have to pay for it.
Well, I think the American people know the situation in Washington is not good. And part of the, but it's just saying, you can't have, what are you going to tell people? The big expenses for government are, a couple of the biggies are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And you try to tell somebody on Medicare you're going to take away some of their benefits, good luck with that. And so instead of these frontal trench warfare approaches, which is like doing a root canal without anesthesia, you do it by changing the dynamic of healthcare, where the patient is in charge, and you stop this crazy, unnecessary skyrocketing of 10, 20% increases each year. One of the big reasons why drugs are expensive as they are is something called pharmaceutical benefit managers, PBMs, which buy the drugs from the drug company, and then they provide them to hospitals and pharmacies, and they are not necessary for the most part. I'm being blunt about it. And they are that's 30, 40, 50% of a drug care costs that really are not necessary. And the way in, so we should be tackling that. Having patients being able to shop for health care. so you can compare prices. I'll give you one story. Several years ago, a guy in New Hampshire that I knew had a heart condition. And so he went to the cardiologist, and one of the things the cardiologist suggested was what they call a nuclear stress test, where they put some, dye in or whatever. Anyway, the patient asked, "What's it going to cost?" And the doc said, "I have no idea. Insurance will probably cover it." Well, this guy, being a good entrepreneur, put together a team, and after great effort, found out the prices from 25 different hospitals and clinics for this procedure, done the same way everywhere, in 25 different clinics and hospitals in the New England area. And he found the prices ranged from $1,450 to $7,300. Same procedure. Now, you could never do that in the free market where you have a normal market, because people would see, why are they charging $5 for a hamburger, and the next door they're charging $100 for the same hamburger? You'd say that's nuts, and it wouldn't happen for long. So that's how you have to deal with it, is realize we have systemic problems. Patients don't control health care. Patients don't control education. Parents don't control education. I think that's beginning to change with educational savings accounts. But where you don't have a real consumer market, you get these crazy things like we have with healthcare, where you pay more and you don't really get more. It's kind of shocking when you think of it, that if you go to the hospital, most hospitals, they do great work. I've been a beneficiary a number of times at my age, but you have to have an advocate there. You have to have a relative or a friend who sort of makes sure everything goes right. And so the answer is not more government. The answer is rely on people. And that's what I've been advocating. By the way, on the tax side, I've been long advocating getting rid of this crazy tax code, 10 million plus words that nobody knows what's in. It's a cesspool of corruption, political corruption. I used to say we should bury it, but the EPA wouldn't allow it since it's so toxic. But anyway, put in a simple single rate system. There'd be deductions for adults and for children, and that's it. And you take a family of four, your first $54,000 of income would be free of federal income tax. Imagine that. And only 17 cents on the dollar above that, and you could fill out the form either on a sheet of paper or a few keystrokes on your PC, and you're done with it. Several countries have done it successfully, and we should do the same. Instead of spending 8 billion hours a year filling out tax forms, and the costs of complying with this code, the last estimate I saw, both on dollars spent and time spent, is a staggering number. You can't even grasp it. Is almost $500 billion. Total waste of money and time.
Hey, Steve, can you talk a little bit about the stock market? Obviously, we've had a good year here, but it seems like there's some concern that you have about the underlying economies around the world and in the U.S., spending being sort of propped up by government. Are we going to reach a bubble? Is something going to pop here? Or do you have an optimistic sort of outlook on where the stock market is going?
Well, there used to be a phrase, stocks climb walls of worry. The time you have to worry is when people think stocks are going great. And maybe we're in that period now. But some of the market is richly priced. But if you had a booming economy, that would be okay. But we don't have a booming economy. And if we don't shore up the dollar, if we don't do some other things like further cuts in taxes, the market may take a hit. But the thing I want to emphasize, especially for younger people, for your 401k, your IRA, whatever plan you have, don't try to time the market. Just keep putting in your money each month or quarter or twice a month or whatever your schedule is, and leave it alone. And put it in a couple of good index funds with low fees, and over time you will beat the market. Don't don't try to be a market timer with your retirement account. So yeah, it may take a hit sometimes, but it always comes back.
Well, Mr. Forbes, I really appreciate you coming on. I've spent my whole life following your work and following your arguments on this stuff. I agree with you. We can prosper through economic freedom. That's the title of the presentation you're going to be giving at North Dakota State University. It starts at 5:30 p.m. on October 23rd. Once again, if you go to ndsu.edu/Challey Institute, you can find out information, how to get tickets, how to get there, and all the other great work that the Challey Institute does. Mr. Forbes, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you in a few days. Thank you.
Hey, Plain Talk listeners, have something to say? Call or text Plain Talk with your questions, comments, or headlines you want us to cover.
Just dial 701-587-3141. Leave us your message or shoot us a text with your name and location, and you could be featured on an upcoming show.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I am in Jamestown.
Hey, Rob and Chad. My name is Tony. I live in Grand Forks.
That's 701-587-3141.
Call us, text us, vent, praise.
We want you in the conversation. Thanks for being part of the show.
Now let's get back to today's episode.
Well, Chad, you knew we weren't going to interview Steve Forbes without getting a pitch for the flat tax, and we got one, which, in a perfect world, I wish our tax code was something like that, but we like using the tax code to fulfill all sorts of political initiatives, and I sometimes wish we'd just leave taxes to raising needed funds to do what the government wants to do. I'm wondering, I know there were some things there that Mr. Forbes said that you just fundamentally disagree with. You have a different point of view. But I think that there is an honesty in the fiscally conservative argument that he's making, that we just have to have transparency in our taxes and what our government is costing us. The one thing I will say that I have left behind a little bit is this argument that like cutting taxes is always good. I mean that's like a grocery store saying we're only ever going to charge $1 for a steak, and it doesn't matter how much the steak actually costs us. That's absurd. If the American people want this level of government, we need to price it appropriately, and I think we should do that, because I don't know of a better way to create a nation of fiscal conservatives than to charge them what their government costs.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I appreciate, I thought, I came into this interviewing knowing that people want to hear from me. I mean, we have Steve Forbes on the show. People want to hear from Steve Forbes. I'm impressed with how ideologically consistent he is. And maybe he's in a position where he gets to be ideologically consistent. But we're not going to upend the whole tax system for a flat tax, right? I mean, he's been pushing that for 20 years. We're not going to completely upend longer than that. It was 20 years short.
I mean, he campaigned on the flat tax when he ran for president.
In 96. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I think also like the idea of we're going to upend the whole healthcare system and just give people HSAs. Like, it's not like
that wasn't exactly what he was saying either. I thought some other the interesting things were he's saying at his company, Forbes, where they're like, let's put the money, let's put all what we're going to contribute to their health insurance. Let's give it to them and let them make some decisions.
Into an HSA. I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, he basically put
not necessarily. He was saying, let them pick because I think that's one of the problems with our system now is my health insurance policy. I didn't negotiate that.
Right.
The insurer,
you should get a union, because our staff here at North Dakota United gets to negotiate their health insurance. But like, we're not there yet, right? And so I think sometimes being ideologically consistent, which I appreciate during these very ideologically inconsistent times, it's easy for him to sort of, well, just do this and it's all going to be fine. His honesty on tariffs. Tariffs are a tax. I wish more Republicans were saying that. Republicans used to say that.
I'm kind of laughing about how Trump is turning a lot of Democrats into free traders.
It is amazing, is it? But I mean, we're also in North Dakota. We're an agriculture state. I mean, I think there's been a lot of Democrats in North Dakota that have been free trade for a long time because of that.
The international markets impact North Dakota profoundly. Even the products that we don't. Most North Dakota oil is not getting shipped overseas. There is. Right. We did under the Obama era, surprisingly, lift the ban on exporting unrefined oil. but North Dakota is just, because of the marketplace, a lot of our oil. But obviously we're impacted. The oil prices in North Dakota are impacted by global oil prices, our agriculture, and by the way, the ability to do those industries. I mean, when Commissioner Goring is talking about the high prices that farmers are facing, well, what do you think that is? Is that because the price of steel's going through the roof? Well, what do you think all their tractors and everything's made out of? All the equipment that they use. And you think that the oil industry and the coal industry aren't facing those same rising costs? It's not a good situation.
Well, and I wish we could have gotten in a little bit more into energy conversation with Steve, because I think that's like healthcare. I mean, we want as much drilling as possible. We want as much digging as possible, but we also have to take care of the planet, right? And so how do you find that balance? Just like a true free enterprise system, when I need a heart surgery, they could charge me whatever the hell they want because I'm going to get a heart. Like, there has to be some regulation in those things. Part of it's transparency. So anyway, I thought it was like a really good interview. I appreciated his honesty around tariffs. I thought it was, I disagree with you saying everything that the Challey Institute does is good. I fundamentally disagree with some of the stuff they push, but again, that's ideology.
Well, I wasn't saying, I think it's good that they bring in people. Obviously they're promoting a right of center,
right,
free market economic outlook, and that's fine. And I'm just saying they're doing good work. They're bringing in very interesting speakers to our part of the world and representing that perspective well. And I don't have a problem with people with different ideological views doing the same thing. So I think they're doing good work from that perspective, whether you agree with it or not. They're good conversations. They're good speakers, really excellent stuff.
And again, I appreciate them reaching out to you to get somebody like Steve Forbes on this podcast, because even if I disagree, I learn a lot during these conversations, and I hope people on my side listen.
Well, I think Mr. Forbes, too, is kind of a bridge to the past of what Republicans used to be. Now, I was looking at some of his social media and stuff before the show. Like, he's still a Trump supporter. And in some ways, he makes me think, like, if you roll back time to, like, the Reagan era, people like Mr. Forbes were squarely in the center of the conservative movement. And people like Pat Buchanan, and that's switched now, where Pat Buchanan has moved in from the margins, and people like Steve Forbes have moved to the margins of the conservative movement. And it's just their point of view is not in favor, to the extent that Donald Trump even has a coherent ideology about any of this. Because I think that's even one of the most, I mean, even getting like, should we have tariffs? Should we not have tariffs? Can we at least have predictable tariffs? Right. Can we at least understand what they're going to be from day to day, instead of not knowing if the president is going to get on social media and send out a post that upends the markets the next day because he just said we're going to, announce like huge new tariffs.
And you think about businesses and farmers and ranchers who have huge input costs, right? And I mean, it's hard to make a profit running a business, running a restaurant, running a farm, whatever. And then you have this like changing. I mean, I've always been told, what do businesses want? They want certainty. They want tax certainty. Farmers and ranchers want the same thing. I thought Doug Goring's comments were like, I don't know if people feel like some of these folks feel like Godfrey's talk about health insurance sort of opened up the ability for people to be honest, but Doug Goring was honest.
You're seeing, I wrote a column about that. That was my print column today as we're recording this for October 1st. And that was one of the things is the gap between how national Republicans are talking about things and how local Republicans are beginning to talk about things here in North Dakota. Because I think when you're a Doug Goring or you're a Insurance Commissioner John Gottfried, I think there are certain immutable realities that they don't have the luxury of ignoring. Doug Goring can't ignore what's happening to North Dakota farmers right now. I mean, I guess he could, but he would be a completely irresponsible elected official if he did, and he's not that. I think Doug Goring cares deeply about agriculture in North Dakota. He's a working rancher and farmer himself. He's a mud on your boots type of guy, and he sees precisely what's going on, and he's not afraid to talk about it. And John Gottfried sees the same thing in the insurance markets, where if there's a fundamental reality here where insurance has to pay for health care, meaning that you have to pay enough for your health insurance so that the insurers have enough money to cover the health care. And the tension between those things, we're talking about insurance all the time, and we're not talking about health care. Nobody wants their insurance prices to go up, but nobody's paying attention to the cost of health care for all the reasons we talked about in the interview with Mr. Forbes.
Yeah, I think your comment about Doug Goring being a rancher, he can't ignore it because it's
happening to him too.
It's happening to him. When he goes down to have coffee, he's hearing it from his neighbors and other farmers, not to mention when he's in his office and ag groups and farmers are coming in and saying they're getting killed. I mean, one of the headlines said doom and gloom or something like that. Sometimes it's just honesty. But the thing I appreciate about both...
That was his words, though. I mean,
doom and gloom, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I mean, it comes in here and it sounds like it's doom and gloom, but he's saying, this is what's happening.
Right.
This is what's happening. He goes, it all sounds a little doom and gloom.
And he names it, though. I mean, that's another thing, that he names tariffs, right? He talks about that kind of stuff. And I will tell you, I think there's a lot of reasons why Donald Trump was elected in 2024. But I think fundamentally the biggest reason Trump was elected was because stuff cost too much. And I think Republicans are better start accepting the fact that things are costing too much and people are feeling it. If it's health insurance rates, if it's not being able to make a profit on the farm, these are real issues that are affecting. This is what people are talking about at the local coffee clutch. This is what people are talking about around the dinner table, is how these things are affecting them personally. And the Republicans in Congress and the president can't just ignore it.
No. One thing, he talked about the happy talk coming from Washington, D.C., and I thought that was so apropos because there is an effort to sort of paper over this where, we get bad jobs numbers. Well, it's because the Bureau of Labor Statistics is biased, and so we're going to can the person at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Or the New York Times reports that farmers are having problems. Well, it's because the New York Times is fake news, liberal media, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there comes a point where reality is going to come for you. In some ways, and I don't want to mean that I'm calling like Donald Trump everything communist because they're not that. But that's what happened to the Soviets, where they were so sort of like sticking to their ideology. And they're like, ignore the fact that people are starving to death in Ukraine. Like, we're just going to pretend like it's not happening. Things are great. The 5-year plan is working. When governments start doing that, we're in trouble. And frankly, I think even before the Trump era, Democrats, Republicans, when it comes to something like the national debt, where we're just ignoring the problem and we don't want to realize we have to cut spending and we have to raise some taxes in order to make the budget, the bad budget balance.
And you connect sort of what we're hearing from farmers and ranchers and Commissioner Goring there. And then at the same time, there's this potential bailout coming for farmers and ranchers from Washington.
That we can't afford.
We can't afford. You had, during the big, beautiful bill, there's a big chunk of money that's going to rural hospitals to make sure that the effects of this bill don't affect rural hospitals. We can't pass policy that's not great or supposed to save us money and then just bail out everybody. I mean, I was told that the Bank of North Dakota is now looking at some sort of program to help farmers that are being hurt by this stuff. I mean, so now the state and the feds are bailing out because of bad trade policy and inflationary economic policy. That doesn't seem smart.
It's not sustainable. And
Right.
The whole government shutdown is about. The issue at the center of it are subsidies for Obamacare, ACA plans, whatever you want to call it. The Republican talking point is, well, these are supposed to be temporary COVID era subsidies and they should go away because temporary should mean something. Okay, but you built that house of cards. What do you think happens when it tumbles? So, we keep putting ourselves in choices where, okay, we either spend money we don't have to continue subsidizing these things, or we suffer severe economic harm. I mean, that's the position we've put ourselves in as a country. And the only solutions I'm hearing from everybody is let's just keep slapping Band-Aids on it so we can get to the next election and hopefully our party won't get wiped out.
But it doesn't work that way because no party's ever going to have 60 votes in the Senate, right? And so you have this situation right now where you've got the Republicans control the House, the Republicans control the Senate, they control the White House, but they have to get 7 Dems to vote with them to pass anything. And so I think it's pretty rich when they blame the Democrats when they control all of government, and the president is tweeting out these ridiculous racist things about the Hakeem Jeffries and others. I mean, the Republicans knew they had to get 7 Dems. In order to get 7 Dems, you have to negotiate. And they didn't want to negotiate. You can say the Dems weren't willing to give whatever, but it doesn't seem like Trump and the Republican leadership were even trying to get somewhere. They just were basically like, you have to do this to not shut the government. That's it.
Our system of government is not designed to let anybody govern unilaterally.
Right.
Our system of government, whether you want to talk about the filibuster, whether you want to talk about a bicameral Congress, whether you want to talk about the checks and balances between Congress and the executive branch, and all those things exist, not all of them, but a lot of them exist at the state level too. It's designed so that people have to reach consensus. And so everybody thinks they can govern without consensus now, that we can just force it through. So we'll shut down the government and we'll do our best to make sure they're the enemy. We hate them. They're to blame. Whether Democrats did the same thing to Republicans, not with the Trumpian levels of bombast and hatefulness, but I mean, Democrats did the same thing to Republicans. I mean, nobody wants to come together. And the problem is the solutions are staring us in the face. We are spending more than we are raising. The only way to fix that is to adjust spending and to adjust revenue. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. And everybody's going to have to give up something to get there.
But there's so many third rails now. I mean, depending on what side of the aisle you are. So to try to come to a consensus. Sure. And again, if you're Hakeem Jeffries, do you want to go and negotiate with Trump and the stuff that he's saying and doing? And like, it's like a child. It's like somebody sending out dumb memes about their enemy in high school. I mean, I just want a grown up. There's
some real authoritarian stuff going on too. You go up to Washington, you go up because traditionally, right? They go up, they talk in a closed room. Then there's a photo op or something. You don't know how Trump's going to stage things. You know how you're all of a sudden going to find yourself on the stage of the Trump reality show with the vice president of the United States shouting at you and creating a TV moment, a reality TV moment for the American people. I mean, for all Trump has held himself up over the years as this master negotiator and everything, you know, one of the fundamental things about being a good negotiator is being somebody that you could trust. Right? It's negotiating in good faith. So how do you make a deal with somebody who probably won't stick to the deal?
Yeah.
And that cuts across all areas of policy. You talk about like international diplomacy. If you're France or England or some of our other allies, how do you make a deal with the United States thinking that we're going to follow through on our end of the bargain?
Right. But it's not just policy. It's life too. A business deal, a deal with your partner. I mean, whatever that is, there has to be trust on both sides of the negotiation. And frankly, I feel like this government shutdown is being met by the American public with just a big yawn. Because
we've seen it before. How many times has the government shut down in the last 20 years?
Well, it's the first time since 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, we've come to the brink 110 times since 2019.
I think the American people are not convinced. And at the end of the day, I do think, I think our country is in a swoon right now. And I think that we are indulging a lot of our worst political impulses in electing some really terrible people to office on both sides because we don't really think any of this. We're amused by it. And we don't really think any of it could touch us because so far it mostly hasn't.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, when we could talk about, we talk all the time, things are terrible and crime and poverty and all this stuff. Most Americans are still doing pretty good.
Yep.
Right. Most Americans aren't really touched by any of this. And until they are, I don't think anything's going to change.
And we live in a time where we're really a selfish group of people. right? I mean, so we're not really thinking about people down the street. There's a lot of me going on. I mean, this isn't like a world war going on. This isn't post 9/11. This is sort of a time of caring about ourselves. And if I'm in good shape, everywhere else be damned.
Even, I mean, you could say that about the right, absolutely, but you could see it about the left. One thing, when I wrote this column about the headline is Republicans aren't singing from the same songbook, and it's about Commissioner Goring and his comments about farmers and everything. Some of the comments I'm seeing on social media and elsewhere are like, thoughts and prayers to the farmers. You voted for this. Who cares what happens to them? Listen, if you're on that side of the aisle, you want those farmers to change how they're voting, right? Yeah. So if you're out there just saying, to heck with you, I don't care what happens to you, you voted for this, you made your bed lay in it. While I understand the impulse, how is that helpful to anything?
It doesn't. Again, and I hope that people on Facebook understand those folks that are saying that aren't exactly people that I think speak for the majority of people on the left. In the state. I mean, I have family that are farmers and ranchers, right? We want farmers and ranchers to do well. But to your earlier point about it's happened on the right or the left, and we don't care about the other folks. It reminds me of hearing about protests from people on the left, and ladies trying to get to work in order to do her job, and she can't get to work because there's a protest in the street, and they're saying, hey, we're standing up for you. And she's like, no, you're not standing up for me. I need to get to my job so I can feed my kids. You're not, you can afford to be out here at 1 p.m. protesting. I can't. I just want to feed my kids.
Right.
And I think there's a disconnect there about what's the reality.
It's a bad time. I mean, it's all activism and very little substance is what's going on now. The campaigning never stops. It's always campaign season, and it's killing us.
Rob, what's your take on the Hegseth meeting with all the generals coming in? I mean, that feels like a sort of a new sort of low might not be the right word, like a new step in authoritism. I don't know.
It was one of the most cartoonishly malevolent things I've seen in American politics. On one hand, you want to laugh at it. I mean, Pete Hegseth doing his best. He clearly wanted to be Pat. The movie Pat. I love the movie Pat.
Yeah.
George Scott. Classic American cinema. He wanted right down to the big giant American flag in the background. He wanted to be George Patton. So and don't get me wrong. Pete Hegseth is a decorated military veteran, but he felt like a Pop Warner football coach.
Yeah.
Telling a room full of NFL coaches how to do their jobs. Yeah. And I really liked the fact that when Trump entered, the room was silent. But they are, Trump talking about going to war on American cities.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is somebody who I think thinks Chicago was more of a problem than Russia.
Yeah.
And that deeply, deeply bothers me. Tearing down some of the fundamental traditions and undermining some of the laws and prohibitions we have on using the United States military domestically, flipping terrifies me. And I don't he's in the room and he's talking about a domestic enemy. When he's talking about a domestic enemy, who is that? That's you, Chad.
Right.
It's me too, even though I have spent my life voting for just about every Republican on the ballot. That's me too, because I'm not down with Trumpism. So when he's talking about domestic enemies, he's talking about us, and he's talking about using the military in that context. Now, I don't think he's going to send the National Guard to Minot to get me. I don't have my tinfoil hat on, but he's certainly talking about sending them to Portland, despite the fact that Portland doesn't need the military.
Well, and I think he's playing up on people's worst fears, right? The people who've never been to Portland, who, look at some protests over the years that have gone. I was just in Portland last summer for 5 days. It's a lovely place. There's a bit of a homeless population, but there's no violence. I
saw this online video from a guy who lives in Portland, and he was like, President, he was so funny. I can't impersonate him. He was hilarious, though. But he's talking about President Trump wants to send the National Guard to Portland. let's take a look at this war zone we're living in. And he's like, you may not be able to hear these protesters over the sounds of children playing.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it was great. He's like, and here are the protesters. And there was like 15 of them. And he's like, you really got to watch out for that guy dressed as Pikachu. Every time I get near him, he tries to get me cookies.
Yeah. What?
It's like
I saw a meme of the National Guard's going to go to Portland and they're all going to start an acoustic folk band when they get there, because that's what you do when you go to. But even Chicago, I mean, I go to Chicago for meetings 2-3 times a year, downtown, near the airport, wherever. I mean, it's not a war zone. It's and I get nervous when there's National Guard people who aren't trained to be cops. They make it worse. They'll make it worse
when we're recruiting, like mass recruiting people into ICE who I'm not sure are qualified to be there.
Yeah.
But I remember once upon a time when Democrats wanted to paint Western North Dakota as this terrible war zone, and it's crime riddled and it's dangerous and everything's terrible. And it wasn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had challenges. The rise in the crime rate was real. There were some real public policy challenges that we had to solve and address, but it wasn't a war zone. It wasn't this thing, but it served a certain political narrative to paint it that way. But again, I wrote this in a column not long ago. I wonder what then Governor Hoeven or Governor Dalrymple, depending at which point we're talking about, would have reacted if President Barack Obama had announced, hey, we're going to send the National Guard into Watford City, into McKenzie County.
Right.
To get a handle on things. I think our thing would be, yes, we have crime problems, but we're solving them. This is not military. This doesn't need a military solution.
Or Fargo's, we hear about crime in downtown Fargo being on the rise. Is Trump going to send National Guard there? Of course not. It's a Republican governor. It's a Republican state. He won't do that. But it's all performative. And I think it's dangerous. And I keep reminding myself, the dude's been in office for 9 months, Rob. That's it.
You keep telling me that, and every time it just puts a pit in my stomach. I think what's even more dangerous, agree or disagree with the policy in the moment, but what's really frustrating is the norms that we're breaking down. And, going back to our interview with Mr. Forbes, and he was talking about tariffs and really hoping that a lot of the tariffs that President Trump is putting into place are going to be, taken down by the courts. I wish we didn't have to rely on the courts to strike this stuff down. And frankly, I'm not sure we can.
Yep, I agree.
Under the John Roberts court has taken a very and for all we talk about them being conservative judges, they have a wildly expansive view of executive authority. Now, maybe some of that is them trying to punt it into Congress's hands, and maybe Congress is the real villain here, and they're the ones that ought to be reining the executive branch in. They control the law, they control the power of the purse, and obviously they're not willing to do it. It's controlled by Republicans right now, seem more interested in doing Trump's bidding. But we are setting new norms for our society in America in the Trump era that are going to come back. And I don't think Republicans are going to be happy when Democrats start wielding, and I'm afraid they will, Chad, start wielding some of these powers in the same way.
Rob, there's no doubt that this is the cycle we're in right now.
Seems to think that the answer is to be the left-wing Trump.
Yeah, and so
I don't want a left-wing Trump. I don't want a right-wing Trump.
Right, and so I'm interested to see how the next year plays out, leading up to the midterms, and then I think the primary for the Republican and Democrat side leading up to 2028, assuming that Trump doesn't run again, constitutionally he's banned from doing that, I think could be one of the ugliest things we've ever seen, because it's going to be people on both sides trying to outflank the other candidates on who can appeal to the base the best.
I think the one thing that might temper it, again, assuming Trump's largely off the table, is that you're going to have so many people in mega world scrambling to grab the ring.
Splitting it, yeah.
And so there's going to be, I think a lot of the fighting is going to be among them. And frankly, I'd like to see the MAGA movement just tear itself apart. That wouldn't break my heart at all.
What? Going back to Pete Hegseth really quick, I saw somebody theorizing he's running against J.D. Vance for the Republican nomination in 2028, and that J.D. Vance is starting to leak background on Hegseth already. So
I think many of them are. I think that is.
They're all England.
You put Noam in there. You know, a lot of the stuff that she's doing with ICE and in the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, they're all angling to be the next Trump. And anyway, that's a long ways down the road. Hey, we're going to end it there. Coming up on Friday, Judy Estenson, former North Dakota State Senator, is going to talk. She had a letter to the editor of the Minot Daily News talking about the redistricting situation. Now, she was one of the lawmakers affected by that. She has some strong opinions about that. But also, she and her husband are in the ag industry and a farmer. And I want to talk to her a little bit about some of the things Commissioner Goring is saying and get her perspective as somebody who is right of center, somebody who is very much a Republican and a Trump supporter. Remember, you can participate in the show, 701-587-3141. If you want to call us, leave a voicemail, we won't answer if you call that number, by the way. So if you're like me and you don't want to call and talk to a person, all you're going to do is leave a voicemail or just send a text, 701-587-3141. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X. Our handle is Plain Talk ND on all of them. Thank you for listening. We'll talk again. That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening. You really got to watch out for that guy dressed as Pikachu. Every time I get near him, he tries to get me cookies.